Hello everyone, Daria here, and welcome to episode number 77 of the Slow Russian Language Podcast. In episode number 75, we talked about what was good in the Soviet Union. Wait a second, I just sounded like Darth Sidious. Good. What was good? Okay, maybe I'll cut it from here. Okay, never mind. So today we have part 2 of this dialogue, and we're going to talk about what was bad in the Soviet Union. And of course, there were many bad things in the USSR. So as usual, first you listen to the dialogue in normal speed, and after that I translate it and read it slowly, sentence by sentence, so you can improve your listening and learn some new information about the Soviet Union. Okay, now listen to the dialogue. Теперь давай про негативные стороны жизни в СССР.
Я назову сразу один большой минус, из которого будет вытекать все остальное. Это так называемый железный занавес. И тогда мы это понимали, а сейчас прошло время, еще больше это понимаем, осознаем, что мы жили за большими железными воротами, и людей выпускали небольшими группами артистов, партийных работников, и за ними следили всегда представители органов власти. Вот эта несвобода, этот занавес железный, невозможность увидеть мир породила целое поколение советских людей, которые не видели ничего дальше своего города, своей страны. Безусловно, это поколение с каким-то скошенным сознанием, либо с манией величия своего государства, либо, наоборот, с ненавистью к нему, что я не могу никуда поехать и увидеть то же море, кроме черного. Да что моря, с людьми пообщаться, просто мир посмотреть.
А про дефицит, про еду?
Было такое понятие, как дефицит, да, особенно продукты, вещи, за каким-то предметом мебели, шкаф, диван, холодильник, телевизор, люди стояли годами в очереди и копили деньги на это. Не то, что сейчас поехал и купил.
А про свободу слова?
Существовало такое понятие, как четвертая власть. Это была пресса. Если твоя фамилия в негативном контексте была опубликована в газете, тебя на утро снимали с работы. Вот такая была сила. Но это же не была свобода прессы. Это диктат был от...
Нет, даже не про прессу, а про обычного человека. Действительно ли нельзя было говорить ничего?
Конечно, нельзя было. В принципе, можно было, но чревато последствиями. То есть надо было как-то использовать так называемый эзопов язык. Отсюда все вот эти жанры: анекдоты, частушки. Народ вот в этом и выплескивал. Не было, конечно, никакой свободы слова. Не было.
А если сейчас бы тебе предложили вернуть СССР назад, все, что было? Нет?
Можешь даже не продолжать свой вопрос. Нет.
So that was it for the dialogue. Now let's translate it immediately. I was the one who started. Now let's talk about the negative parts of life in the USSR. In Russian it was «Теперь давай про негативные стороны жизни в СССР». You see how I skipped the verb here? I meant now let's talk about bad parts of living in the USSR. But in Russian I just say «Теперь давай про негативные стороны жизни». There is no verb. We understand it from the context. And then my mom says «Я назову сразу» immediately «один большой минус». One big minus. Из которого будет вытекать все остальное. It's a metaphor here because the verb вытекать itself means to leak about some liquid, for example, some water leaking from somewhere. And here it means that there is a huge minus and all other minuses, disadvantages, bad things are kind of leaking out of this big minus. And then she names it. This is so-called Iron Curtain. Это так называемый железный занавес. So-called in Russian is так называемый, and the Iron Curtain, железный занавес. The Iron Curtain is something what we have in North Korea today. Almost no one can go out of the country, and the people who go into the country are under total control until they leave it. So foreigners can see, only the government allows them to see. There is no information for ordinary people from outer world, no freedom of speech, nothing. They know nothing about what was going on in the rest of the world. So that's what was going on in the Soviet Union, and it is called the Iron Curtain, железный занавес. Then she continues, we used to understand it back then, and now, after all this time, we understand and realize it even more. И тогда мы это понимали, а сейчас прошло время, еще больше понимаем, осознаем. Two important verbs here, to understand, понимать, and to realize, осознавать. Мы понимаем и осознаем. And then she explains what they realized. She says that we were living behind the big iron gate, and they were letting out only small groups of people, artists, political workers, and they were always followed by the representatives of power. Such a long sentence. Let's try to read it in Russian. Что мы жили за большими железными воротами. That we were living behind a large iron gate. And here, of course, it's a metaphor. Again, there were no any gates, literally, like in Germany, for example, the Berliner Wall. No, but still, this metaphorical iron gate. Железные ворота. И людей выпускали небольшими группами. People could go out of the country in small groups. Artists, representatives of the political party, артистов, партийных работников. And they were always under control. И за ними следили всегда представители органов власти. And I guess here she means those terrible guys from KGB. And yes, they really had to accompany and control everyone who was going out of the Soviet Union for some time. The next sentence, and this lack of freedom, this iron curtain, this inability to see the world created a whole generation of Soviet people who never saw anything beyond their city and country. Вот эта несвобода, этот занавес железный, невозможность увидеть мир породила целое поколение советских людей, которые не видели ничего дальше своего города, своей страны. Very, very long sentences in this dialogue we have. So, lack of freedom, or literally not freedom, несвобода, it's one word, несвобода. Inability to see the world, невозможность увидеть мир. And it all created the whole generation of people, целое поколение, who didn't see anything beyond their city and country. Не видели ничего дальше своего города, своей страны. And then she says, and of course it was a generation with a messed up mind. Or messy mind, I'm not sure. Changed mind. Безусловно, of course, это поколение, generation, с каким-то скошенным сознанием. It means that in their mind, something changed, something is not normal. Скошенное сознание. Either with a superiority complex about their country, or on the contrary, with hatred towards it, because I can't go anywhere, even to see a sea, except the black one. Well, who cares about seas? I can't communicate with people or see the world. That was a super long part. Now let's try to translate it step by step. Either with a superiority complex about their country, либо с манией величия своего государства. So superiority complex is мания величия. And it happens a lot. I see it very often in people from different countries. For example, from the States, people who have never left their country, they have no idea what really is going on in the world. They can only learn it from TV or from the papers or from their neighbors who maybe came from those countries, but they never saw it with their eyes. They've never been there. So it's very easy to think that your country is the best. Everything you produce is the best. And people from different countries think like that. In Russia too, many Russians are absolutely sure that Russia is the best country in the world, and everything we do is perfect, and everyone else is much worse and more stupid and blah blah blah. And same in India. Many people in India think that India is the best, and their food, their culture, their traditions, everything is better than in the rest of the world. So in the Soviet Union, people didn't know anything about the world, so they were absolutely sure that their country was the best. It's the one part of people, of course. And then she said, or on the contrary, with hatred towards their country. Либо наоборот, с ненавистью к нему, meaning to the state, к государству. And then she kind of speaks like a Soviet person. I can't go anywhere. Я не могу никуда поехать. To see a sea, at least. Увидеть тоже море, except the Black Sea. Кроме Черного. Then she has a very interesting expression. Who cares about seas? I can't communicate with people or just see the world. So this who cares about something in Russian is да что моря. But intonation here is very important. Да что моря? So who cares about seas? I can't even communicate with people. С людьми пообщаться. Просто мир посмотреть, just to see the world. Then I asked her, and what about deficit, about food? I'm not sure about my pronunciation of the word deficit, but in Russian it's дефицит. So I asked her, а что про дефицит, про еду? And she answers, well, there was such a term, deficit, yes. Ну, было такое понятие, как дефицит. Да. So this deficit means that there is nothing to buy in the store. So she says, especially food and goods. Особенно продукты, вещи. In order to buy a piece of furniture, wardrobe, sofa, fridge, TV, people had to wait in lines for years and save money. In Russian, it's «За каким-то предметом мебели, шкаф, диван, холодильник, телевизор, люди стояли годами в очереди и копили деньги на это». So to save money is копить деньги. So it wasn't like you go to the store and buy something. First, because it was very expensive, and second, it was just not there. You couldn't find a fridge just like that, like simply go and buy a fridge or TV. No. If you watched the movie Moscow Does Not Believe in Tears, which is an incredible movie, I highly recommend watching it, there was a scene when one of the three friends, got married, and the second friend was complaining that, oh my goodness, it's so boring, their whole life. First, they will save money to buy a fridge, then they will save more to buy a TV, and like that for years and years to come. It's like a terrible, terrible life to have. Yeah, young family saving money for everything. And then my mom says, it was not like it is now. You go and buy. Не то, что сейчас. Поехал и купил. And yeah, now we have another problem. There is just too many. You go to the store and you don't know which one to choose. Okay, then I asked her another question. What about freedom of speech? А про свободу слова. So freedom of speech is свобода слова. And she says, there used to be such a term, the fourth branch of authority. Существовало такое понятие, как четвертая власть. You know, there are several branches of power, like courts and people who make laws. So the fourth one was press. Это была пресса. Then she says, if your name was published in the negative aspect in a newspaper, the very next morning you would lose your job. Если твоя фамилия в негативном контексте была опубликована в газете, тебя на утро снимали с работы. So, снять с работы means to fire someone. Then she says that was the power of it, but it wasn't the freedom of press, it was a diktat. Again, my pronunciation dictate. In Russian, it's diktat. Total control. So in Russian she said, вот такая была сила. Но это же не была свобода прессы. Это диктат был. And then I said, I don't even mean the press. It's more about a regular person. Is it true that you couldn't say anything? Даже не про прессу, а про обычного человека. Действительно ли нельзя было говорить ничего? You know, when it comes to dictate, is it true that you can't say anything you want to say? For example, you can't say that you don't like the government or you don't like the system. In those types of countries, like the Soviet Union was, or like modern North Korea, you couldn't say things like that. So my mom replies to this question, is it true that you couldn't say anything? She says, absolutely. Of course we couldn't. Конечно, нельзя было. Literally, it means, of course, it was forbidden. Нельзя было. Then she explains, actually we could, but the consequences would follow. В принципе, можно было, но чревато последствиями. Последствия means consequences, aftermaths, fallouts, if you want. I'll tell a story about my dad. He was a very good student at the university. He was studying journalism. And on the final exam, he gave a good answer, got a nice grade. And finally, the professor asked him, what do you think about the newspaper Pravda? Truth. It was the main newspaper in the Soviet Union at that time. And my dad was always honest. He said, I don't like this newspaper. I don't read it. And you can imagine the scandal. They almost threw him out of the university for that. Thank goodness some other professor defended him. And he stayed at the university. But as you can see, you can be a brilliant student, for example, but for one word, you can be kicked off. Yeah, that's the system. So then she says, so we had to use the so-called Aesopian language. Надо было как-то использовать так называемый, so-called, Эзопов язык, Aesopian language. And it means when you try to cover, to convey your real idea, and you pretend that it's something different. But people understand what you really mean. So formally, everything is okay, but in reality, you say something forbidden. You just cover it with different words. And that's Aesopian language. Эзопов язык. Then she says, that's why all those genres appeared. Anecdotes, частушкас. Частушка is a funny folk kind of a song. Usually makes people laugh. So there were many songs about the Soviet government, but hidden with different constructions. So in Russian it was отсюда, from here. Все вот эти жанры, all these genres. Анекдоты, частушки. People spilled it all out this way. Народ вот в этом и выплескивал. But of course there was no freedom of speech at all. Не было, конечно, никакой свободы слова. And then I asked her the last questions. And if someone offered you to bring the USSR back, to get back everything that was there? Ну, а если бы тебе сейчас предложили вернуть СССР назад все, что было? And then she almost interrupts me and says, no. Нет. You may not even finish your question. No. Можешь даже не продолжать свой вопрос. Нет. So you see an absolute and clear no to the question if she wants to live in the Soviet Union again. I receive so many emails from people who feel romantic and nostalgic. It's so funny how they feel nostalgic even if they never lived in the Soviet Union. But I receive many emails like this. Like, I wish we could bring the Soviet Union back. It's, I remind you, people from America writing to me that this was the right place to live with strong, beautiful people who valued love and honesty and stuff like that. And I'm always like, oh God, facepalm. Because I have no words. If you want to feel what the Soviet Union was, go to North Korea and stay there for a couple of years and you will understand what the Soviet Union was. If you get rid of all that propagandistic, beautiful cover, all those pictures with workers all clean and happy, singing songs, holding hands. Yeah, guys, I beg you. You would spend 10 hours in a line for a pair of shoes for your kids. So, yeah, don't stop being naive. Stop being naive. Read books, not some propagandistic kinds of books. Read memories, or is it memoirs in English? I'm not sure. Read letters of people who lived there. Actually, I think it's a great idea to make a series of letters. I have tons of letters from my mother. They were sending them to each other. She was writing to her mom and to her sister. And that's an amazing source of information about the Soviet Union. How my mom was thanking her mom. Thank you, Mom, for sending this glass of beans to me. So a handful of beans she sent from Chelyabinsk to Samara. And she said, thank you so much. We can't buy beans here. You can imagine that? So yeah, those people who are happy to bring the USSR back, please do it somewhere else, not in Russia. We don't want the Soviet Union here. Okay, I think it's time to listen to the dialogue one more time, and hopefully this time you'll be able to catch more words and constructions. So listen to the dialogue one more time. Теперь давай про негативные стороны жизни в СССР.
Я назову сразу один большой минус, из которого будет вытекать все остальное. Это так называемый железный занавес. И тогда мы это понимали, а сейчас прошло время, еще больше это понимаем, осознаем, что мы жили за большими железными воротами, и людей выпускали небольшими группами артистов, партийных работников, и за ними следили всегда представители органов власти. Вот эта несвобода, этот занавес железный, невозможность увидеть мир породила целое поколение советских людей, которые не видели ничего дальше своего города, своей страны. Безусловно, это поколение с каким-то скошенным сознанием, либо с манией величия своего государства, либо, наоборот, с ненавистью к нему, что я не могу никуда поехать и увидеть то же море, кроме черного. Да что моря, с людьми пообщаться, просто мир посмотреть.
А про дефицит, про еду?
Было такое понятие, как дефицит, да, особенно продукты, вещи, за каким-то предметом мебели, шкаф, диван, холодильник, телевизор, люди стояли годами в очереди и копили деньги на это. Не то, что сейчас поехал и купил.
А про свободу слова?
Существовало такое понятие, как четвертая власть. Это была пресса. Если твоя фамилия в негативном контексте была опубликована в газете, тебя на утро снимали с работы. Вот такая была сила. Но это же не была свобода прессы. Это диктат был
Нет, даже не про прессу, а про обычного человека. Действительно ли нельзя было говорить ничего?
Конечно, нельзя было. В принципе, можно было, но чревато последствиями. То есть надо было как-то использовать так называемый эзопов язык. Отсюда все вот эти жанры анекдоты, частушки. Народ вот в этом и выплескивал. Не было, конечно, никакой свободы слова. Не было.
А если сейчас бы тебе предложили вернуть СССР назад, все, что было? Нет?
Можешь даже не продолжать свой вопрос. Нет.
And that was it. Don't forget that if you like this format, you can always join my membership program. It's available at realrussianclub.com/membership. Check out the show notes. You will find the full text in English, in Russian, and of course all the links too. So that's it for today. Thank you very much for listening, and I hope to see you in the next episode of the Slow Russian Language Podcast. Bye-bye.